Benjamin, it's not the first time you went in Provence and you played this organ.
Oh, yes, I played this organ many times when I visit here, but I played concert for museum night years ago, couple of years ago, maybe in 2007 or something. With I played also same pieces, especially Purcell, Blow, and Bach also on this organ. But I like very much this wonderful historical organ also because it's very near of the organ of kind of organs that was played by Handel, chamber organ. And when we say organ, we can imagine a big organ, church pipe organ, but chamber organ it's completely different. It's more soft, more sensitive. It's just chamber organ. It's also very interesting to perform in this way with other instruments, for example, but also alone, and to give the impression that, for example, for this Handel piece, this concerto, that we have solo and we have also orchestra and solo and we have real dialogue. And with this pedal, it's also very this combination pedal, and we can have all of high colors, if I can say, and you can just put enough with this pedal and just play directly piano forte. So it's very interesting of this organ. The colors are very sensitive, especially for this adagio ornaments. So it's all the time new experience to look at and how can we perform with the wind. It's very, very nice.
So the choice of the program was especially made for this organ.
Exactly, yes. There is no pedal, key to play pedal keyboard. So it's only manual, and so there is also very interesting thing sometimes harpsichord. There is a big ravalement, that there is low keys to G, and to make 16 effect, and we can have a very, very tutti effect with this bass, and so it's also very, very nice on this organ.
Alan, what can you tell us about the organ? It's a Byfield organ.
Yes, it's made by John Byfield II, whose father was also an organ builder. And they were, in fact, they were the English branch of a distinguished dynasty of organ builders who came from North Germany. And John Byfield Sr. came to England at the beginning of the 18th century. And his son took over the workshop when he was about 24 years old, and after his father's death. And very strange arrangements were made in the 18th century in London among organ builders. There was a thing called the indenture quadripartite, which was an arrangement made by the Byfields, Abraham Jordan, and Bridge, and one other whose name escapes me at the moment. But what is interesting, of course, is that again, Boston is there is some interest that in the Trinity Church in Boston, for example, there is an organ by Abraham Jordan, Byfield's partner. There are also instruments in Boston originally delivered in the 18th century by Bridge. This particular instrument was made for Sir James Grant, one of the great figures of the Scottish Enlightenment, for a magnificent castle right up in the Highlands of Scotland. I visited the castle, and Sir James bought the organ in in fact, he ordered the organ in May 1765, and I'm sorry, he ordered it in May 1766. He made a down payment to Byfield, and Byfield started making it in the autumn of 1766, and in fact the lower key of the harpsichord is dated 1766. And it was delivered by sea to the castle in August 1767. And I will just draw attention to one particular feature of it. It has the most beautiful carving that we've ever seen on an English organ, unusually not gilded, but just in limewood. Limewood had gone out of fashion when Gwenlyn Gibbons died 35 years earlier, and this is one of the finest pieces of limewood carving in English furniture of the middle of the century. And something that you might notice is that there's red silk behind the pipes there, and that red silk is original from 1766.
Wonderful.
And it's an indication of the astonishing condition of this organ. And the condition is, in fact, predicated on two matters. Firstly...
Also, sorry to interrupt you, it's also the temperament.
Yes, that's what I'm coming to.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, no, very precisely.
Yes.
Essentially, the quality of building of this organ is impeccable, which also counts in its longevity. Inside there is not the slightest trace of any technical failing. It had the advantage of being delivered in August 1767 to Castle Grant in the Highlands. It was in a north-facing room, and it stayed there until 1958. So it was 190 years in one room. It was used and tuned and kept in perfect order during Sir James's lifetime until he died in about 1806 or something like that. It then fell entirely out of use, and there are a couple of labels inside saying, tuned by so-and-so. But it's one of the few European organs of great caliber that has escaped absolutely entirely any alteration whatsoever, including to its temperament, in the 19th and 20th centuries. And it's come down to us it's almost like new. It's at the pitch that we found Handel's own tuning hammer, tuning fork, was almost exactly the pitch of this organ.
Yes.
And the temperament is very characteristic of the English temperament.
Wasn't the first fork in Europe, in England, in that time? This pitch, it's
about 434.
Yes.
Or 435, but it left the castle. Well, it left the possession of Scots in 1972. And was purchased by a very dear friend of mine who had a wonderful museum in England. And when he retired and closed the museum, sadly, a museum called Finchcock's, he just hoped and prayed that it would fall into good hands, and so did I. And I'm very glad it's here in Provins and will be one of the great features of our museum.
Thank you very much, both of us, and see you for another concert in Provins.
Okay.
2 days for us.
Thank you so much.
Next week.